Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Facebook Live. My name is Jacinta Luster. I am the manager of admissions for special populations. I have some awesome guests here today for undergraduate and undergraduate research at KSU. So we're so excited to have our guests here today. Of course, you know the drill. We're going to do news from the nest. We're going to talk to our guests, ask them lots of questions. We want to hear questions from you because that's the exciting part, to get those questions that you have answered. So I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves, and then we'll get started from there. Trey, you want to go first?
Hello, everybody. My name is Trey Dunn. I'm a rising senior at Kennesaw State University. I'm studying biology, and I hope to pursue a MD PhD degree in the future.
And my name is Dr. Amy Buddy. I am the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research, and I'm also a professor in the psychology department.
Awesome. So we're going to get into lots of questions for Dr. Amy and for Trey, just to hear more about his experience here at KSU. But here's some news from the nest we want to get started with. Fall is almost here for our students, but we are done with the fall application. It has closed, so the next term that students can start applying for and looking into will be our spring. Our spring application is already open for our students, and our deadline is November 1st. So you've got some time if you're thinking, you know what, I'm not going to come for the fall. Maybe you weren't able to get in for the fall. You have the spring term to come in and apply. So that's open for our students. So definitely look into that term for our students that are coming in. Other things to think about for our students that have been accepted for fall of 2020. We have some next steps that, of course, we want you to make sure that you're taking if you haven't already. So sign up for orientation. Our transfer students, make sure that you sign up for a transfer orientation, sign up for what's it like to transition from one institution over to KSU, and also sign up for classes. So make sure that you sign up for transfer orientation. And then for my seniors, our incoming freshmen, if you haven't done orientation yet, make sure that you sign up for that as well. Keep in mind that orientation for us this year is going to be virtual, so it is all online. We made sure that we are making it as exciting and fun as possible, like you're getting that same in-person experience with our virtual orientation. So make sure you sign up for that. If you haven't already, today is the last day to file your FAFSA. Of course, you can always submit your FAFSA anytime, but today is the priority deadline for you to submit that FAFSA. So make sure that you do that. We have financial aid online with us today to answer any of those financial aid questions. So make sure that you post those there, and they're happy to answer those for you. Another next step for our students, when it comes to signing up for classes, you will have a holding account for lawful presence. So if you haven't submitted your lawful presence verification, you can do that. You can upload it online. You don't have to come into the office. So you can go to lpv.kennesaw.edu. We'll drop that link inside of our Facebook Live, just so you guys can link it there. But you can go there, upload either a color copy of your driver's license, you can do a color copy of your passport, and we will get that hold removed for your LPV. So if you see that when you're checking your status online, and you're like, what is this LPV hold? Just know you can go to lawful presence or lpv.kennesaw.edu to make sure that you get that hold removed, so you can register for classes on the day of your orientation, which is like really important for our students. Some upcoming things. We love Facebook Live here in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. We have other departments that are also hosting their own Facebook Lives, and we want you guys to be in on those as well. So you're getting information from all different departments on campus. So our Orientation and Transition department is actually going to be hosting a orientation with University Stores and Altech Facebook for those students. So make sure you join them. It's going to be July 8th. So hop on Facebook, watch their Facebook Live, learn more about our bookstore, about our Altech. If you are a big Apple fan, we have a lot of different Apple products here on our campus. So we definitely want you guys to partake of that, especially as a student. You get those student discounts. Who doesn't love a good discount, which I do. So make sure that you guys tune in for that. It's going to be from 2 to 3, same like us in admissions. We hosted at 2 to 3. So make sure that you are tuning in and watching that for our students. So that is all of my news from the nest. It was short, it was sweet. Now we get to ask a lot of questions for undergraduate research. So we're really excited about that. Yes? Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Amy and Trey, just some general questions that we want to start off with, but what is undergraduate research? Can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Yeah. So we use the definition from the Council on Undergraduate Research, which is like the big national body overseeing undergraduate research. And the definition is an inquiry or investigation conducted by an undergraduate student that makes an original, intellectual, or creative contribution to the discipline. I've got it memorized from having said it hundreds of times over the last several years. But what I love about the definition is the original part. You're making an original contribution to your field. You're going to hear from Trey in a couple of minutes about how he's making an original contribution to his field, but I like that the definition works for everybody. So you could be making an original contribution to dance by a choreography. You could be making an original contribution to psychology, my field, through a survey or through an experiment. And so the definition works for every discipline, and we have students from all the majors at KSU doing undergraduate research. And so if you join in, you're joining a good crowd there. We are national leaders, if I do say so myself, on undergraduate research. So we hosted the largest national conference on undergraduate research in 2019. We have hundreds and hundreds of students doing research at KSU. We have our faculty mentors winning awards. Just last week it was announced that a faculty member in the Department of Theater and Performance Studies won a giant undergraduate research mentor award from the Council on Undergraduate Research. So we just have a lot going on.
And can we talk a little bit about, we are a research institution. I think a lot of people don't know that. Most research institutions, you have your graduate students that are usually doing that, but here at KSU, because we are such a large undergrad population, we afford those opportunities not only to graduate students, of course, but to our undergrad, mostly to get those opportunities to do research. So Trey will be able to talk a little bit more about, the things that he's gotten to do, but we really focus on that. Can you talk a little bit more about those opportunities?
So in, I think it was December of 2018, KSU was designated as an R2 institution, which means it's a Carnegie classification that indicates that we're a doctoral university, but we have what's called high research activity as opposed to R1s, which have very high research activity. And so we have a lot of research activity going on at all levels, faculty doing research, graduate students doing research, but my area is helping the undergrads get involved. And because historically we've had, like you said, we've had way more undergraduates than graduate students, faculty are just used to working with undergrads. It's not abnormal. Some of the R1 institutions are really more focused on the faculty research or the graduate research, and historically KSU has really embedded undergraduates in research in meaningful ways, not just collecting data or, washing beakers, or those things are very important. But the students are actually doing, meaningful research, making original contributions to their discipline. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. And what are just some opportunities for our KSU students right now, especially during this time of, coronavirus and just so many things that are going on in our world? What are some things that KSU is doing in that space?
Yeah, so the coronavirus has been hard. It's been hard on everybody, but it's been especially hard, I think, on the undergraduate researchers, particularly in certain fields like biology or the performing arts or anywhere where you would need to be physically somewhere. I was really lucky. I've been mentoring students for years, and my students this past year had done online surveys. And so when the pandemic hit, we'd already collected our data, but even if we hadn't, it was online, so it wasn't going to be a problem. And so we just, had to do data analysis and have our meetings over Teams instead of face-to-face. So it actually was okay. I think a lot of students have transitioned to maybe they're, analyzing data that they collected that they could do at home, or they are writing things up for publication, or submitting abstracts for virtual conferences instead of face-to-face conferences. So there has been that kind of adaptation. We are allowing students to do face-to-face, in the lab kind of research, but the faculty mentor really has to make the case that it's safe. So students are wearing masks, they're socially distancing, they're sanitizing equipment that's shared if there is shared equipment. Maybe they're not coming in as regularly, you know, they're kind of spacing out who comes in when. They have to make the case that the space can hold X number of students who are socially distanced. So they have to, you know, make the case that it's going to be safe. That's the most important thing, that it's safe for the students. But if they are able to make that case, then yeah, research is continuing. So we have like students out in the field, because you can stay far apart, you know, if you're doing ecology research, or if you're in the lab, as long as you can kind of stay away from people, you can continue to do it. So we've managed to make it work.
That's awesome.
It's just it's a challenge.
Yeah, of course. During like a traditional semester, what's some of the opportunities that students can get with research at KSU?
Yeah. So I think that the most common way that students get involved in research is to approach faculty who they want to kind of get involved in their research and kind of work collaboratively. And I think Trey has had that experience of just approaching a faculty member, or they approach you, and then you get involved in collaborative research, because you need to have some supervision as an undergraduate. You need to have a faculty member who's supervising you. There are also a lot of courses at KSU that are undergraduate research designated. It's a fairly new phenomenon, so I'm kind of excited about that. It's part of the It's About Engagement initiative at KSU. You can look it up at engagement.kennesaw.edu. And so it's an initiative to increase the number of courses that involve undergraduate research, service learning, and internships, just to engage more students that way. So you can take those courses. Students can actually do research as part of the Undergraduate Research Club, so that's another way that students get involved. And what I like about the club is it's a registered student organization that's open to anyone. So if you're out there thinking, I have no experience, I don't know what you're talking about with these conferences, etc., join the club. You'll have me as your advisor, and I promise I'm really nice. And I will help you get through all of that. And you'll be doing team-based research that's decided on by the people in the team. So like you guys as the club, that's the student-oriented club, I'm just the advisor, but I'll help you through all of it, where you basically decide, okay, we want to study this year. And so the teams get together and they conceptualize a project and they design it and they go through any ethics training that they need to go through. They collect the data, they analyze the data, they go to conferences. Every year, we've been doing this for a lot of years now, and every year the students get accepted to national conferences. They present on campus. There are some of the teams right now are working on publications. So it's a really good way to kind of get your feet wet if you're just not sure how to get started. You know, how do you approach a faculty member? That can be kind of scary. So if you're not sure exactly how to get started, join Undergraduate Research Club. And then the final way that I want to talk about in terms of how people get involved is a fairly new program we have in our office called the First Year Scholars Program. And I am so excited about this. We had our first cohort last year. And it's basically, we want students to get started right away. We don't want you to wait until you're a senior. Trey can allude to this later on, because he didn't wait till he was a senior. You need to get started right away, I think. And it's a way to allow faculty and first-year students to work collaboratively together and get a stipend. So the first-year student gets a stipend, the faculty mentor gets a stipend to work on a project throughout their first year. And it went really well that first year last year. The students did amazing. Actually, Trey knows some of the students from his lab who did it last year. So if you are also interested in doing research right away, I would really recommend, it's a short application form on the Office of Undergraduate Research website. Just put in an application and see what happens. You know, if you get it, then you might be able to do research over the course of your first year, and it just really gives you a leg up. You know, later on, maybe you want to do more research with other people, or you want to apply for these kind of competitive scholarships like Trey's going to talk about. This is the kind of thing that you need to be thinking about right now.
Awesome. So let's get into just some questions with Trey. Trey, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose KSU, what type of research that you're doing right now? Just kind of tell us a little background of who you are.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's different about me is I actually didn't want to come to KSU, and I think that might shock you hearing that. I didn't want to come to KSU. I wanted to go to a different school with all my other friends, and unfortunately I didn't get into that school. And actually when I first came to KSU, I thought about transferring, and I think after my first month at school here, I realized that it was the best decision of my life coming to Kennesaw. And I can thank three main people for that, and that's Dr. Bell, Dr. Cortez, and Dr. Loughton, who shaped and changed my life and like showed me what I can do here at Kennesaw. And one of those things that I could do at Kennesaw was get into research as early as possible as a freshman. And I actually got into research as a freshman after my second month of school, and I think I only taken maybe one general chemistry class, like test. Wasn't even taking a single biology class at the time, and I joined Dr. Martin Hudson's lab, which is a very deep dive into biology. It's genetics-based, studying nervous system development, and I had not a single clue of what I was doing. I had no biology background, but I was allowed to go in there and actually try to learn from them, the other students in the lab. And I think that's something that was very beneficial to my education process as I went through those biology classes in the future, but also as a character development, because you learn a lot from doing research, and I guess I'll talk more about that later, but yeah. So.
Did you know that you wanted to do biology, or was it just from that one class? Or did you come in thinking, I'm going to be this particular major and now I'm going to switch my major? Tell a little bit about that journey.
I actually came into college with a plan. I remember in senior year of high school, we had to do a senior project and kind of outline what do you want to do with your life, I guess. And for me, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a doctor. Particularly at the time, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And so during my senior year of high school, I actually researched so much about what does it take to actually get into a medical school and stuff like that. And so coming into college, actually before I even stepped foot on campus, I emailed the head of my program, the advanced majors program, Dr. Loughton, and was like, how can I get into research as early as possible? And she started sending me advice about how to do that process. And one of the key things that she told me was actually to come into college and to take a minute to actually get adjusted, acclimated to the college atmosphere, because college is different than high school. As your high school teachers will probably say, is college is a different animal, and it is in a way, but it's somewhat the same as well. And so I spent the first couple months of college to not only build friends and figure out how to live around campus and stuff like that, but also to learn about how to take college classes. And then after I did that, I was looking into research from day one, and I went to seminars, which Kennesaw actually offers, I think weekly. I think there's 2 a week in the College of Science and Mathematics, one for environmental sciences and then one for your biology sciences. And I would show up to those just to see what it was like. And obviously the language was foreign to me, but I learned a lot in the process. And that's how I kind of initially got into research. I met Dr. McMurray at the time, who was the vice president of the undergraduate research program. And at the end of his seminar, he said, if you're an undergraduate student in here, come talk to me if you want to do research. And I was like, is he talking to me? He's got to be talking to me. So I emailed him directly right after that. I remember walking out of the classroom and I was like, what's his email? I need to write his email down. I need to contact him now. And I got a meeting with him later on, and he offered me a lot of advice and told me to look into other professors that are doing research. And I did my search, and I stumbled upon Dr. Martin Hudson, who was doing neurology at the time. And also at this time, I started to transition my kind of career aspirations to neurology. And so I was like, let me shoot him an email. And after sitting down with Dr. Hudson, like I said before, he offered me a spot, and I got to join a lab as a first semester freshman. And I think another thing about that is I also got to do real research, not too long afterwards. I didn't just sit there and clean dishes and do the work that no one wants to do. I was actually trying to figure something out, trying to discover something new. And I think that's something that set me apart for the rest of my life going forward.
That's awesome. That's really great. Can you describe some other research that you've done at KSU? As you guys know, Trey is going into his senior year, so it's, we're getting to that other side of graduation. But through your time here from a freshman to now, what other opportunities have you had as a student doing undergraduate research?
So I would say I've done 2 different types of research. I've done your wet lab basic science research, which is kind of biology, petri dishes, stuff like that, which is Martin Hudson's lab, where I work with these little worms and kind of study genes and how they relate to us humans. And you might be asking yourself, why are you studying worms? How does that relate to us humans? And the reason why is because these worms, known as C. elegans, are actually highly conserved, meaning that genes that are found in you can also be found in C. elegans. And so I can study a gene that might be associated with some form of disease and study in C. elegans at a smaller basic science level and try to understand the molecular pathways and how does this gene work. And this will give us a bigger picture of how it might work in humans. It doesn't tell us exactly how does it actually work in humans. That's a big thing that you'll realize, is that studying things in worms does not mean that just because you saw it in worms, it happens in humans. Not the case at all. Yeah. But you get to learn a lot about humans. And so, for example, in the Hudson Lab, I mainly studied this gene known as CND1, which has been associated with type 2 diabetes. And I studied how this gene regulates other genes. And based off our research, we were able to have a publication not so long ago. And we were able to find some pretty cool stuff. I don't know if I should go into nitty gritty about it. It's very jargon heavy, but it's some cool stuff, to be honest. And honestly, if you ever meet me on campus, I'd love to tell you about it.
Yeah, let's hear a little bit of it.
A little bit about it.
We got time.
We got time.
Okay.
Tell us, Trey.
So like I said before, this gene is known as CND1, and it's been associated with type 2 diabetes in humans. So when we were studying this gene in C. elegans, we realized, because we did a little science experiment to see what does this gene control. And what I mean by control is, like, does it cause another gene to start producing more, or does it cause it to start producing less? And we found many genes that were regulated by this other gene. And one gene that I studied particularly was known as CH5. It's a homeobox transcription factor. That's a very jargon-heavy word, but essentially what it means is it controls a large anatomical development. So like your arm, for example. For instance, this gene, CH5 in humans, is known as VAX2, and it's associated with the development of your retina. And so I was able to study how CND1 regulates this gene, and I was able to show that CND1, when it's mutated or when it's not mutated, it controls or it causes the down expression of CH5. And essentially what that means for us is that in a normal copy of that gene, it actually upregulates that expression so that it's producing at a normal level. And then I also got to see how those effects relate. So that was kind of the main thing I did with that research, kind of understanding that, and took a long process because research is hard. And I think it's really hard to actually understand what I mean by hard. And I think when you get into college and actually start doing research, I think one thing you'll realize is that you're going to fail. And I failed a million times over. I remember I was like, am I even cut out for this? Multiple times, because nothing would work. And I think that's one thing I learned as time went on, is that that's part of research, is that research is about failure and about improving off your failures and working towards a new goal, or like adjusting your question to a better question, something like that. But that was like one of the projects I worked on, which was that. And like I said before, it just got published not too long ago, maybe 3-4 days ago. And I've been working on that project for 2 years with help of other students that have graduated from my lab. And so like, I think that's another interesting thing that I can say about myself now, is that I have actually contributed something to the real scientific world. I've actually am an expert of something that's brand new that no one knows about besides myself. And I think that many students that are coming into college can do the same thing as well. You can come into college and contribute and do the same thing. Because when I first got into this project, I was a freshman. Now as a rising senior, it's published, and I actually have something that I can talk about to friends, family, and be like, hey, look at this. This isn't a research journal. I actually have something that is new, groundbreaking discovery that, who knows, one day it might be in a classroom. I don't know. Yeah. It's stuff like that. Like little things you might find in research can soon enough be in a classroom that you're learning about in the future. And you can be doing that as early as a freshman as well.
That's awesome.
I loved his sentence about, I'm an expert on this. That,
yeah.
From the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research, that's the thing that tugs at my heartstrings, you know,
Yeah.
like this, because students say that, it's not just Trey, like they get kind of overwhelmed by that. You know, they'll give a presentation at a conference or something, and it'll sort of dawn on them, I know more about this than everybody else in the room, and just
Yeah.
like to see that excitement. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, just honestly, to continue off that, like I've been able to present my research at a multitude of places, like the Georgia Capitol, at several national conferences, and even local conferences. And I think that is something that you realize once you're starting to present. You're presenting to someone that has no clue what you're doing.
Right.
And you are the expert. You are the teacher in that aspect. And you're supposed to teach them about why your research is cool and why is it so important, like what's the impact of it. And I think it's very cool that you can do that. I've been able to do that to congressmen at the Georgia Capitol who honestly probably been taking a biology class since high school.
Yeah.
And they were able to come and see my scary poster and leave afterwards and be like, wow, I actually learned something. Like, you know what, science is not that bad. I wasn't as scared as I thought I would be. And I actually learned something, how these little worms can actually help us in the long run. Yeah. And that's only one aspect of the research that I've done. I'm actually helping on another aspect with the College of Science and Mathematics and how we should teach our students, the best way of teaching our students. And the HHMI, which is the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, has actually funded us to kind of look into how to teach students from multiple different backgrounds the best way possible. Because we want to make sure that every student that comes into college in science and mathematics, like that's a STEM major, can actually succeed in that pathway. Because STEM is hard, and the STEM majors are hard, and it's not easy, but we want to make sure that our teachers are able to adequately help all students from regardless of where they come from, whether it's from a very poor economic background or from a very rich, I guess, background in an instance. So I've been helping on that aspect. We're trying to identify ways teachers teach and how students respond to those teaching. Right now it's very early in the infancy stage, and me and some other students are helping out in that process with all the other deans in college science mathematics to help this out. And I know we're not the only school doing this. I think there's several other schools doing it. But this is another part of I guess research. It's a little bit different, more macro level, but it's something that I can contribute to hopefully next generation students that are coming in, that they can get more other education and learn more in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can we talk a little bit more of just kind of what it looks like when it comes to publications, especially for undergraduate students? How, with the research, how does that happen for a student typically, or is it just, it's a part of, you're a part of this research opportunity, so you could possibly be published, or how does that go for a student? Can we talk about that a little bit?
So it's actually really rare that undergraduates are publishing. So Trey's in the very elite category. There are, I would say, several different avenues for this. Most students present their research first at national or local or regional conferences, and then they get feedback, and then they maybe turn that into a publication. I think that's the last step, and the problem is that a lot of students graduate before they get to that final step, especially if they haven't started like Trey did when he was a freshman, right? Yeah. You're talking about research that you did in your first year here that got published 3 or 4 days ago. Okay, that took a long time. And so that's a real big barrier, is that there's such a lag between when you actually do the research and when it gets published. But that shouldn't be a deterrent to people, because I really think that publishing should be more emphasized, because that's how you're going to reach a really big audience. I am the editor of the Kennesaw Journal of Undergraduate Research, and so that's a way for undergraduates at KSU to get published. And the manuscript that has the most downloads is an online journal, so I can track how many people download each of the manuscripts in that journal. And the top rated manuscript has been downloaded about 30,000 times from over 180 countries. A Kennesaw Journal of Undergraduate Research manuscript did that. That's a huge reach. So that's why I think that we really need to emphasize publishing more. So that's an undergraduate research journal. You're talking about actually a journal in your field, which I think is even better, because then you're reaching a wider audience in terms of your discipline. But it just takes a long time. And the other problem, I think, is that the publication process is super frustrating, and probably Trey can talk about this. He's nodding, yes, yeah. I can. Because what happens is you submit a manuscript and you're not done. So you're going to get it back, and reviewers are going to have looked at it, and they're going to find all this stuff that they want you to change. And so you're going to take however long it takes. It could take months, and you make all the changes that the reviewers want, and then you send it back, and then the manuscript is so altered that they come back and say, oh, we found these other 25 things, so you're going to have to make those changes too. And then you do that, and you send it back, and they're like, now it's only 13 changes, and you're like, oh, how many rounds of this can I go through? But eventually, if you persevere, you get there. And that is one thing that I really want to stress, is that perseverance gets you there. You just have to keep going. As the editor of this Kennesaw Journal of Undergraduate Research, I see so many students who kind of give up at some point. They don't want to keep making these changes, or they get distracted, or they get busy with other things, or they graduate, and we never hear from them again. And it's a real shame, because we just wanted to make it a great manuscript. So that's why we're constantly asking you for more revisions. And if they had just done it, they would be published by now, and they would have a publication on their resume. So I think the perseverance part is the most important. But Trey can probably talk about that more than I can.
Yeah, to go off what she said, the perseverance part is definitely huge. Like I said earlier, with the failure part of research is honestly it's perseverance. You just got to keep working towards your goal, keep trying. And like I said before, I recently got published, but that work took a long time to get to that process. That work actually started before I even came to Kennesaw, the whole manuscript itself. I came in halfway through the project, and I worked on it for about 2 years, so my freshman and sophomore year. And then we submitted it last year at the end of my sophomore year, and it came back for review. And the review was steep. We had a lot to do. And it took us months to get it done and then resubmit it. And so we actually resubmitted it earlier this year, and I remember when we submitted, I was like, okay, finally, we're gonna get it done. It's finally gonna be published. We're done with this. I can move on to the next thing, like, because it's been a huge hurdle. And then it came back with, you got more things to do, and I was like, come on. But honestly, the second time the reviews weren't that bad, and it actually didn't take us that long to actually resubmit it, and then it finally got published. But like Amy said, it's all about perseverance. And essentially, if you want to contribute something, or actually want to be like do something that contributes to like the bigger world, it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take a lot of perseverance, and you can do it. And the reason why this took a long time is because we're being scrutinized by other people that are experts in our field. They want to make sure that this is solid, so that when it's published, that there's no one can refute it. That's what you want in your research. You don't want to post research that's not true or stuff like that. Otherwise, you can get massive amounts of problems. I can get into that too. There's problems with people that publish fake research, and it's caused a lot of problems in our society today. But yeah.
Can you talk about Goldwater and how you learned about it and kind of what that process looked like?
Goldwater is probably the most prestigious undergraduate research scholarship, I think. There's no like classification.
Dr. Amy, shaking her head.
He's right.
But Goldwater is a very prestigious undergraduate research award. Essentially, you're funded to do research in the future. It's not an award to do research. It's an award to like pretty much take the burden of school, tuition, and everything else off of you, so you can focus on what you want to do in the future as a researcher. I don't remember exactly how I learned about it. I think I learned about it through a conference that I maybe attend, or I heard it from a friend or something like that. I remember because I was very looking into something like that. I thought I was doing research, like there's probably a scholarship for this. I need to pay for college. And I found it, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. But Goldwater was very hard. One thing that's particular about the Goldwater is that you only can apply for it when you're a sophomore or you're a junior. And when I found about it, I was like a sophomore, I think, and so you had to get nominated by Kennesaw to actually apply. So what I mean by that is essentially I had to apply through Kennesaw and get selected by Kennesaw to actually apply to the real thing. And that's another process in itself, and I'm going against all the other students here at Kennesaw that are amazing students as well. And as a sophomore, that's another thing. It's like all these other students that are juniors have a little bit more experience than me, maybe. And fortunate enough, I was actually selected to apply my sophomore year, and going through the process of actually filling out the application, writing a research essay, and all that was very hard. It was actually very, very hard. And I learned a lot in the process of actually like kind of discovering like why I want to do science, and how can I actually tell that to someone that I don't know who's even reading it, because I don't see who's reading my application. Unfortunately, I didn't win it my sophomore year, and I remember receiving the information that I didn't win it in front of all my friends, and they were all patting me on the back, it's okay, and I was like, dang, this is not good, this is not fun. But I took a step back, and I learned a lot from this process, and it doesn't mean that I can't apply again my junior year. And going back on perseverance, this is all about perseverance. Yeah. And so that year in between my sophomore and junior year, I did a lot. I went on to internships at MIT. I did more research. We actually submitted, this is when we submitted the paper for publication. I presented at a lot more conferences. I did a lot, and I actually even became more independent in my research, trying to take more independence and control what I'm studying, like trying to take a leadership role in my lab, and then reapply my junior year. And so going into my junior year, I felt stronger, way better about my application than my sophomore year. And going into it, I was like, this has to work. This is everything I got, and that's all you can ask for. You only can control what you can control. And so this is what I could control, is like what I did in my time. And if they see that I'm worthy of it, I guess, then that's up to them. It's not up to me anymore. I've done everything I can. I've taken advantage of all the opportunities that were given to me. And fortunately enough, I was selected for it. And I was actually the third student from Kennesaw to actually be selected for the Goldwater Scholarship. We actually got a student last year when I applied and didn't get it. His name was Bia. He actually won it. So right now we're on a 2-year win streak, I guess. And so hopefully we get another one next year. Yeah. And we've only had 3 total, if I haven't said that already, but yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I think one of the things I think is really interesting about you, and just listening to what you've talked about throughout this time, is just kind of, there is a confidence that you have to have, but being willing to take the risk to go out there and to ask the questions, to be vulnerable enough to say like, okay, this research didn't go so well this time, but you know what, we just keep going and we keep trying, we keep persevering. I think that's important for our students to hear, especially students coming in and they're like, I want to be involved, I want to do research, I and they hear all of these things and people telling them to get involved, but it's like, where do I start? And I think it's good to hear from you that, you started as a freshman, but you went out there and you tried and you asked questions and you were, you put yourself out there to get those opportunities. So I think it's important. I think you're a good example to our students that are coming in to want to look at those opportunities as a way of, moving forward with their trajectory and like what they want to do in life. Dr. Amy, can you talk a little bit about just your background? I feel like we've been talking a lot about Trey, but just a little bit about
interesting
he's
than
so,
me.
I mean, he's super interesting, but I feel like we should also just hear a little bit more about your background and kind of, because you come from a different area where most students assume, if I'm a biology major, that's where I'm doing all of my research. But like you said earlier, research is not just in the STEM fields or the science fields, it's in everything. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Before I talk about myself, though, something Trey said made me want to plug Dr. Michelle Miles. She's in the Honors College, and if you're thinking, I don't know anything about this Goldwater stuff, like how would I even put this application together? You're not alone. You're going to have some support at KSU, and there are other scholarships too besides Goldwater that she can help you navigate and help you find the ones that are best suited to your experiences. So go talk to Michelle. She'll help you through that. So and you'll get some feedback from people about your application before it gets submitted. So I was actually on the internal committee, the KSU committee that evaluated the applications from KSU, because we can't send them all to the Goldwater Foundation. We have to select. And so his application was just out of control good. So it was no surprise to us that he won. Anyway, so more about me. I started here in 2003, actually as an assistant professor in the psychology department, and I immediately started mentoring undergraduate researchers in psychology and just absolutely loved it. And so it was kind of a natural progression through my career to where I am now. So I ended up actually working at our Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning for a long time, where I was sort of part-time, like half-time doing undergraduate research stuff and then half-time still in my department. Eventually that became full-time, and then it became a whole office because we had just grown so much from 2003 to now that you couldn't do it just half-time. And so now I'm in the Office of Research, and it's been great because for a long time I was just kind of coordinating a lot of this stuff by myself, and it was really time-consuming. And now there's an associate director for undergraduate research. We have administrative help. There are student assistants in the Office of Research. We have a communications manager, Joelle Walls, who helps with all the kind of promotion of undergraduate researchers on campus. So that's been really cool. And one of the real highlights for me in this role is being the advisor. Actually, I'm a co-advisor with a biology faculty member, Saitian Zhang. And we are mentors to the Undergraduate Research Club. And I love that because I get to continue to mentor undergraduate researchers, even though I'm in this administrative role trying to coordinate a whole bunch of things. But I still get to have that contact with the students. And they get to do the projects that are interesting to them. And I can just kind of help them through things like, how do you do the ethics training? How do you analyze data? They don't know how to do all that stuff. So I get to kind of still teach, which is exciting.
That's awesome. Can you maybe give a piece of advice to students who are, maybe they want to be a dance major, but they want to go into research? Like, what is that? How does that work for them? Is it the same way that a student who's in biology would go about doing research opportunities? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it actually doesn't have to be that different. All tenure track full-time faculty members at KSU are engaging in research or scholarly activity as part of their job. It's just a requirement. And so if you're in dance, the full-time faculty members, the tenure track faculty members are doing research in dance. If you're in biology, they're doing research in biology. So all you have to do is kind of have the confidence, I guess, to actually approach faculty in your major and just see, hey, can I get involved? You don't have to have your own idea yet. Like I don't think that you had your own research agenda when you approached Dr. Hudson to get involved in his lab. You can just kind of help out with faculty members' existing research, and just that's a way to sort of learn the techniques of your field, get kind of enmeshed in the discipline, and then maybe later on you're taking more ownership and having more independence in doing research. But when you first start out, we don't really expect you to be, curing cancer or anything like that. So I think that the most important thing is to approach faculty in your major and just see if you can get involved. And I also really want to encourage sort of interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary collaboration. Some of the best stuff that we do is, it was several years ago now, but a faculty member in English, she was working with a psychology student on research, and they ended up publishing a book together. And it was the synergy of the two disciplines. Like, they came at the research from different angles, with different lenses because of their disciplines, but when you put it together, it was amazing. And so we really want to promote interdisciplinary research. So you don't have to just approach, if you're a dance major, you don't have to just approach dance faculty. You could take the perspective from dance and then go to some other discipline, and then maybe something amazing happens there.
Can we talk a little bit about the conference that our students, that we hosted last year in 2019? Can we tell students what that is, how they can get involved, and go from there?
Yeah. This was maybe the best professional thing I've ever done. It was the National Conference on Undergraduate Research. It is the largest undergraduate research conference in the world, and it travels around to different institutions. And so KSU was the host in April of 2019. It had never been in Georgia, so we were the first ones. And when we hosted it, it was the largest NCUR in its history. So we just knocked it out of the park. Everybody raved about our campus. We're getting attendees from, I think we had, I don't remember exactly, but I think 46 of the 50 states were represented at NCUR that year. So we had people from all over the country, and even some international students coming and presenting at KSU, and they just loved it here. Students were just anecdotally telling me that they wanted to transfer here, so that was awesome. But NCUR is just a really supportive environment for students to present their research. And so you would either present a poster, an oral presentation, a performance, or a visual arts display. And so we had close to 5,000 registrants when we hosted it. Normally it's closer to 4,000. And you just basically get this chance to practice kind of talking about your research, but you also get to see what everyone else in the country is doing and go to a lot of cool presentations. And then there's other kind of fun stuff involved too. So like we basically took everyone to a Braves game the Friday night. We also had a petting zoo just to kind of like, have a little downtime during the conference, because it's kind of intense. It's 2.5 days of just constant learning about research. And so you need to kind of have a little fun in there too. And so I really think that hosting NCUR put us on the map. People really know about Kennesaw now as a function of us having hosted that conference. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, NCUR 2020 had to be canceled. That was supposed to be in March, and so about 2 weeks before they were supposed to host, it got canceled. So we still are remaining the last time it was held face-to-face. I don't know what will happen this coming year, but if it happens, it will be at California State University, Long Beach in April of 2021. And we always send students to it, wherever it is. So if it happens face-to-face, then we'll fund a small number of students to go. And that also assumes that we're allowed to travel. So right now we can't, so there's a lot of question marks here. It might turn into a virtual conference, and then there might be sort of a reduced registration fee or something like that, where we would pay the registration costs for students to present virtually. So I don't know exactly what will happen, but hopefully the following year, we'll kind of be all past this, and we'll be going to University of Central Florida for NCUR 2022, and I'm excited about that one because it's close.
Yeah.
We don't have to get on planes, and it's a lot cheaper. So so that's going to be exciting. And then the year after that, it's up in Wisconsin, and I don't think they know where it is the year after that. So wherever it goes, we go with a small group of students, and everybody just has a great time. No matter where it is, the students bond. They all support each other by going. The KSU contingent all supports each other by going to each other's sessions and things like that. So so I just think it's a really kind of nice, supportive atmosphere for presenting your research.
We actually had one of our tour guides. She was in the honors program, and so she did she presented her research, Alyssa. She's already graduated, but she did her research and presented. It was really exciting. We were like cheering her on, so excited for her to share that opportunity.
Yeah.
Trey, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned earlier, we were just talking off camera, you're part of the Honors College. Can you tell students kind of what that is? We had them on a few weeks ago, but can you talk a little bit about your experience as an honors student?
Yeah, I think the Honors College is amazing, actually. I think it offers a lot of advantages that I think students don't realize until they actually get into college. I think one of them is actually even like the classes that you can take, because they have set classes for honors students, and also like kind of hybrid-ish classes, because you can take a normal class and then add an honors aspect to it. But at the same time, also you can get your classes that you want, because honors gives you like priority registration, etc. But another aspect of it as well is that you're in a cohort of other students that are very aspirational about what they want. I'm not saying that any other student at Kennesaw is not aspirational, but you can find students that are more similar to yourself, that are studying similar things that you want to study. And I think the Honors College is amazing, and most of my friends are in the Honors College, and I think it pays a lot of dividends. I don't know, there's nothing bad to say about Honors College. There's really nothing bad to say about it.
Did you come in to the Honors College as a freshman, or did you apply later?
Yeah, I didn't come into Kennesaw as an honor student. I applied into it, and yeah, that's how I went into it. I think if you're not into honors already, try well in your first classes, then apply in. I think it's open to everybody, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you give, I don't know if are you doing any research, Dr. Amy, at all right now, or do you just teach, or?
Mostly I am just supervising the Undergraduate Research Club projects. There were 5 this past year, doing all different projects, so it was that's like what I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, are you working on anything that we can plug and talk about a little bit? Yes, that's awesome. Can you also talk about going back to the first year scholars in the Martin Hudson Lab? And can we talk about the Martin Hudson Lab a little bit? Like, just kind of go into it and what that is for our students out there?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I should take this as
yeah.
my lab.
You're like, I'm always there, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, Dr. Hudson is the head of his lab, obviously. Mm-hmm. He has 2 aspects of his lab. Mainly, it studies nervous system development through C. elegans, which is a small nematode worm that is found in our soil. And he also has another aspect where he studies stem cells and like kind of stem cell development, stuff like that. We had 3 first-year scholars in our lab this year. It was Michaela, Lauren, and David, and these were exceptional students. They were very driven, like what they wanted to do, and I think that kind of separates them from other students, that they came into the lab wanting to do everything, which was kind of like myself. When I came to the lab, I didn't know anything, but I wanted to do everything, and that's exactly what they did. And as first-year scholars, they got to immerse themselves into real research, and they actually were doing real research at the same time, actually learning how to do research at the same time, but also learning how to become independent as a freshman, which is crazy. Because it took me longer than that, and they're already doing that as freshmen, and they're going to be exceptional in the lab going forward. Unfortunately, I didn't get to spend that much time with them this year because I was so busy, but I'm looking forward to taking more of a mentor role coming into my senior year, and also helping new students that come in, because who knows, we might get more new students coming in. But the Hudson Lab is very encouraging, a fun environment, and honestly, there's no bad days in the Hudson Lab. We always have a good time. We always try to help each other out, and I don't know. I love the Hudson Lab. I don't know. It's gonna be weird when I leave it. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you try to tell us a little bit about your future goals beyond graduation? As I always say, the other side of graduation for you, and kind of what that trajectory looks like.
Yeah, so like I said earlier in this talk, is that I came into college wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon. However, that has changed drastically. Originally, I just wanted to be an MD, just a regular doctor, becoming a surgeon. now I want to be a physician scientist, and particularly I want to study neurology. And one big reason why I want to do that in my future is because of how devastating the neurology field is. As a doctor, if I went into neurology alone, I would feel somewhat helpless to my patients, because half the stuff that is in neurology that you can be diagnosed with, there isn't really any treatments or cures for. And so I wouldn't really feel as a doctor, because a doctor is supposed to kind of help you get better, and I would feel like I'm not really helping you, I'm kind of just giving you bad news. And I feel like adding that PhD aspect to it and actually seeing research and doing research as an undergrad has changed my mindset that I can actually not only help patients with what we already know, but I can try to help patients in the future with what we don't know. And another aspect to that is also I've experienced it personally. My grandfather was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and before I went to MIT, I went home because I can't really go home to New Jersey that much to see him, and I noticed how devastating it was. And even though it was in its early stages, I noticed how devastating it was just seeing my grandfather kind of lose sight of like who I was, who my sister was, etc. And I was like, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable that this is a thing that we don't know anything about, that we can't even do anything for. And so for me, for myself, that's what drives me every day, is kind of going into lab, even if it's hard or I'm very busy or there's a lot of things that are like a lot of pressure on my shoulders and I'm failing or something like that. I always think about the bigger picture. What is my purpose? Why am I doing this? And it's because I can help people like my grandfather or other people that are suffering from similar neurological diseases. Because one more other aspect to that on my side of the family is that my uncle has a learning disability, and he grew up most of his life, or his first 8 years of his life, normal, and then he got a disease, and then that caused a learning disability. And my dad and his dad, which now has Alzheimer's disease, are very smart, analytical people, and so is my grandmother, who's a nurse. And just seeing what she's going through right now is that she's got to take care of my uncle, who's got a learning disability but is very exceptionally smart. Even with that learning disability, he's very high functioning, still works. And then also now taking care of my grandfather that has Alzheimer's disease is very devastating to see. And I can't imagine what other families are going through with that aspect. And so that's what drives me every single day. So like, for example, right now it's summertime. Some people are trying to do some summer things even though we have a pandemic going on. But for me, I am sitting indoors. I am studying 6 days out of a week because I'm studying for my MCAT. And it's been really hard. It's tough, and because I want to be outside, I want to be sitting by the pool or hanging out with my friends, but I know that I got to do this. I got to take care of this first so that I can help people in the long run. And that's what inspires me, and many of my other students or my friends are kind of in the same boat, is that they want to pursue things that are not discovered yet, things that we don't know about certain diseases like cancer, like heart disease or diabetes, etc. They want to be at the forefront of figuring out these types of diseases and how that they can help people like myself or my grandfather and stuff like that going forward.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. As we get closer to the end, I always ask the question, and both of you can answer this, what piece of advice would you give to a student coming in? Because we have one of the largest incoming freshman class. So we're gonna have probably a lot of students who are eager and excited, but they just don't know like what's first. So can you kind of give that encouragement and then just kind of moving on from there?
Want to go first?
Sure. So dive in, don't be afraid, because faculty here I think are pretty nice. And if you approach us and you want to get involved in research, or maybe you'd rather do service learning or community engagement, or you want to get involved in clubs, like just dive in and start trying things and see where it takes you. But don't wait. That's my biggest piece of advice is, Trey's a good example of this. You want to apply for the Goldwater, you have to have shown something in your first year. You can't have just sat down and maybe just taken classes. That's not really going to get you some of these more prestigious opportunities. So dive in. Faculty are really willing, I think, at KSU to help out students. Especially, we love it when you sort of show up in our office and you're like, I'm new here and I just really want to get involved. And you come to me and I'm just going to be like, yeah, let's figure this out. And so don't wait. Get started right away.
Yeah, I would share the same sentiment. Don't wait. I would say like a lot of students are kind of fearful of like kind of doing research as a freshman, that they don't know enough. Like, I don't know enough. I need to wait until I take more classes. I would say no, go straight into it as early as you possibly can, because it doesn't matter how many classes you've taken. Once you get into that research lab, you're still going to learn a lot. It doesn't matter how much you know already, there's so much more you need to know. And so I would say just try to get your feet wet, try it out, because the best part about doing it as early as a freshman is that you can try it, and if you don't like it, you can find another option. It's not end all be all that, oh, I don't like research, I can't do anything else. No. There's so many different opportunities at Kennesaw. You just got to find those and take advantage of those. Kennesaw is very open, like Dr. Amy said, or Dr. Buddy said, is that faculty are very open. They're very easy approachable and stuff like that. So make sure you take advantage of that, and honestly just enjoy your 4 years of college. It's kind of coming to end for me, but it's been the greatest 4 years of my life, and I'm going to be sad when it's over.
Yeah. Where can students learn more about undergraduate research, or just research in general? Because we have, of course, graduate students and doctoral students. Where can they go to learn more about the opportunities that we offer here at KSU?
So the easiest thing would be just to email us at OUR, that stands for Office of Undergraduate Research, at kennesaw.edu, or you can go to our website, which is research.kennesaw.edu/OUR. And there's a ton of opportunities there. We have funding. I haven't even talked about all the stuff, but
yeah, go into it. Yeah,
we have funding for you. We have funding for your mentors. We have an on-campus conference that we're going to have. Well, it's going to be virtual in a pandemic, but normally it's a face-to-face thing. The fall will be December 3rd, and then we'll have another one in April. We have workshops. We have online resources. We have advice to you on how to approach faculty to get involved in their research. So there's a ton of stuff at the website. So I would recommend kind of poking around on the website and seeing what you can find. And if you have any specific questions for me, just email our@kennesaw.edu.
Can you talk a little bit about just funding opportunities? Because I know that it's not like, people may think, well, do I have to pay for this out of my pocket? Like, what does that look like? Can you talk a little bit about funding?
Oh, great question. Yeah. No. We don't want you to pay anything. So we have funding to help you. If we were in normal times, you would be, for example, presenting at a conference, and maybe that conference is not here. You have to travel to get to it. So we have some travel funds available. We have funds to help you purchase, like let's say you need to have supplies or equipment or something to do your research. We have funding for that. We have funding for the mentors, because good mentoring takes a lot of time. And so if we can help out the mentor students, then we're willing to do that. Like I said, the first year scholars program involves a stipend for both the student and the faculty mentor, so there's some funding there. So basically, like if you need something, come talk to us before you shell out. If you go to a conference, oftentimes the very first way that students present is a poster. We pay for the poster printing costs, things like that. So there shouldn't be any out-of-pocket expenses. And if you are feeling like there are, come talk to me and we'll figure out a way so that you don't have to pay for it.
And can you talk a little bit more about like the mentor? Is that a student that's going to be a mentor, or is that faculty that's being a mentor?
I meant the faculty, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But there is a lot of peer, kind of mentoring that goes on. You're probably a mentor to the freshman and sophomore students. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yes. So we are getting close to the end. Thank you guys so much for just coming out and telling us a little bit about your department and what you're doing. Trey, I see great things for you, just the way you are, and I think that you're going to go far, far, far. I'm really excited to see. I'm glad I got to know you. So we always end our Facebook Lives with a hooty hoo and owl eyes. So if you guys want to close out with me, we're going to do a big hooty hoo. And thank you guys so much for watching Facebook Live. All right, 1, 2, 3, hooty hoo, guys.
Hooty hoo.